So as you know, there are tons of these top 10 videos floating around YouTube, and while this is certainly a popular trend, there is no right or wrong answers. These are strictly my personal opinions, and you may or may not agree where I place a select Keyblade, but that doesn't mean if your personal favorites don't make this list that they don't deserve a spot elsewhere. I strictly base this list off of maybe how cool a select Keyblade looks to me, how it may affect the story, or even just the mechanics involved. This list covers the entire series, and from this point forward, there will be story spoilers, so just a warning in case you haven't played all the games, now is the time to close the video. Anyways, no more stalling, let's jump right in with number 10, Wheel of Fate. KH3 introduced new Keyblade form changes, and while Wheel of Fate isn't one of the most impressive looking Keyblades to me, it was certainly a strong late game option, and I found myself using it until the very end of my first playthrough. I love the pirate aesthetic of the Keyblade itself, and the form change turning into a spear really stuck out to me. Highwind added a lot of reach with each swing, which was really cool, but the final form being Storm Flag just felt so fluid, pun intended, especially with the finishing move of Kraken tentacles erupting out of the ground and splashing waves all around you. But overall, this was just a very strong Keyblade choice for your setup. Number 9. Fenrir. You will see a trend through my video that I personally am very drawn to longer Keyblades. I think it makes them look almost like a two-hand greatsword, and that is most apparent with Fenrir. I just love the look of this baby. It's long, chunky, seems like it would pack a serious punch, and it gives me major Cloudstrife sword vibes with the bandages wrapped around it, which does make sense after the boss you defeat to get it. Number 8. Ever After. This is another one of the strong Keyblades that came with KH3's form changes. Again, like the Wheel of Fate, I didn't particularly love the look of this one, but the form change is what made this Keyblade for me. I love when you dodge, it produces this leftover mirror image that makes you play a little strategic with the placement of them. Because when you are done dodging and you want to attack again, you shoot a volley of magic missiles at your target. This just felt like a super unique playstyle, almost giving me a mage vibe with Mirage Staff. Also, you can't go wrong with that shot lock, acting as a heal when you don't max it out, which is why this Keyblade stuck with me in my main setup of all my playthroughs. Number 7. Decisive Pumpkin. Now besides this just being one of my all-time favorite Keyblade designs from the series, I can't help but love it since it's from the Nightmare Before Christmas world in KH2, which just so happens to be both my favorite Christmas and Halloween movie. I love the little jingle bells it makes with every hit, and overall it just captures that Tim Burton look and I love it. Plus it's just one of the strongest Keyblades in KH2, with the combo boost and the high strength stat, so you really can't go wrong with this one. Number 6. Kingdom Key. Now you may roll your eyes at this one, but I am a sucker for the originals. I love the classic look of Sora's very first Keyblade, even though technically all the other Keyblades are just the key chains on the Kingdom Key changing its look up. But even though it's not the most impressive looking of all the blades out there, it has a certain charm to it, for just being thick and bulky while remaining minimal. It may be boring, but I wouldn't want to get hit by it, that's for sure. Number 5. Royal Radiance. This to me is just one of the best looking Keyblades available. It really does earn that title of Radiant. This is just such a unique looking Keyblade that as soon as I got it in Birth by Sleep, I pretty much used it all the time, even over Ultima. Plus you earn it after defeating one of the coolest bosses in the game, that being Nohart at the end of the Mirage Arena. A fitting reward for a pretty challenging fight. Number 4. Chaos Ripper. Again, this Keyblade being exceptionally long, it automatically stuck out to me. But this is just one badass looking Keyblade. I couldn't think of a cooler one for Terra to wield right at the end of the game. It bears the gazing eye you see on many of the dark Keyblades in the series, most notably being on Master Xehanort's. But also I think this just kind of depicts how Terra really succumbed to darkness by the end of his story. And that just makes this Keyblade all the more epic for me. Number 3. Ultima Weapon. Most precisely Ultima from KH2. Now I do absolutely adore the Ultimas from every game, but for some reason the look of KH2's Ultima always sticks out to me. I love how this one is the most symmetrical while having kind of a rounded end to it, giving it the look closest to a massive greatsword. Plus Ultima is just a cool Keyblade all around. It has a nice little Easter egg built within it by having the logos of KH1, 2, and 3 in the Keyblade designed for their specific game. And also just because you have to actually work for this weapon, so it gives an extra sense of accomplishment when you wield it. Now I do have to mention KH3's Ultima. Though it's not my favorite look, it is still a very pretty Keyblade. But we have to talk about that form change. Ultimate Form is a very fitting name for this weapon, because when you are in Ultimate Form, you are pretty much unstoppable, and it's almost cheating, and it just feels awesome, plain and simple. Number 2. No Name. This to me is the coolest looking wieldable Keyblade there is. It is unfortunately also a reward from the most busted fight there is. After defeating the mysterious figure's secret boss at the end of Birth by Sleep, you are then bestowed upon this glorious weapon. I love everything about it, from the color gradient to the little clocks with the hanging hourglass keychain. I don't really have much more to say about it than it's just one sexy Keyblade that I wish we could use in all of the games. And for number 1. This is kind of a 2-for-1, those being Oblivion and Oathkeeper combined. Now, as you may know, if you have played through the series, these are very important Keyblades to the story, going all the way back to KH1, while also just being 2 very unique looking weapons. I remember being so hyped when I first got Oblivion, but then the hype got even bigger when you see in KH1's secret ending some mysterious cloaked guy wielding them both together. And that just sparks so many questions. You later find out that guy is Roxas, and he sure can wield those puppies, which you really get a taste for during his KH2 fight, and also when you get to play as him in KH3. But you really don't get the true power of these 2 together until you use KH3's form change feature. In the Rebind DLC, they brought back the ability for Sora to wield them, and depending on which you are holding, your first form change will either be light or dark form. But the real treat is the second form change, being double form. It's just pure awesomeness, plain and simple. When you see Sora just going wild while wielding them both, this form change really gives the OP power from Ultimate form a run for its money. And now for a few honorable mentions that just barely didn't make it to the top 10, in no particular order. Nanogear. I love the Baymax aesthetic of the Keyblade itself. I'm a sucker for Big Hero 6, but the technological effects from the form change with the pixels really stuck out to me. It felt very snappy to pull myself to my target, and I loved how it kind of acted as both a melee and a ranged weapon. Next, Master's Defender. Once being Master Ericus's Keyblade, it is later bequeathed upon Master Aqua. This iconic Keyblade is quite cool relating to the story, even though it is one of the more minimal and boring blades in the game. It still remains one of my favorites. Shooting Star adds another very unique KH3 form change, allowing you to whip out dual pistols and shooting magic bullets while gliding around. This is just a really fun mechanic that I had a blast playing with, literally. I also quite enjoy the magical look of the blade itself. Soul Eater. This being Riku's iconic Keyblade, I always loved the look of it when I saw it in KH1, and then you were even able to wield it yourself in KH Rechain of Memories while you played through as Riku. I personally prefer the menacing look of it over its predecessor Weighted Dawn. And finally, I couldn't forget Happy Gear from KH3. Again, not my favorite look for a Keyblade, but it was very appropriate for the Monsters Inc. world. The biggest appeal for me though is the twin yo-yo's form change. I loved whipping those puppies around and having the same snappy pull that Nanogear has. Overall, just a really creative playstyle in my opinion. And now for a few of the non-wieldable honorable mentions. No Name. Master Xehanort's iconic Keyblade, with that menacing gazing eye watching and recording history. But besides it just being the most iconic evil Keyblade in the series, it is just one badass looking weapon and I couldn't forget it. Nightmare's End and Mirage Split. This Keyblade also has a name people refer it by that I won't mention right now, but is first seen as a combined reality shift in Dream Drop Distance, which shows the power of friendship between Riku and Sora, cutting down any obstacle. I think that is such a cool concept and really grasps the vibe of the series. But also just the intricate design of this weapon when both sides are linked together is super nice looking. Next, the Foretellers Keyblades. So as first introduced in the KH mobile games, the Foretellers immediately had a very mysterious presence, with almost a royal council look to them. I know some may disagree, but I absolutely love their robed look, and even to this day, after knowing all we do about them, or what we don't know about them, I still can't wait to see more. But their Keyblades specifically are so cool looking. Every single design is unique and goes so well with the overall look. But my personal favorite is Master Envy's. I love how long and snake-like it is, and it's just a really solid design. And finally, you can't forget Keyblade! With an X. This being the most important weapon to the Xehanort saga. I just had to mention it because it's badass looking, plain and simple. Nothing more really needs to be said about it. And so that concludes my list. I hope you all enjoyed my ranking, but if you completely didn't agree with where I put some of these, or even left some off, let me know in the comments. And maybe even let me know how you would list a top 10 of your own. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.